I've had acne for 20 years. Yes, even now at 31. Hi, I'm Nanika. Welcome back to Badass Brown Beauty, where we talk about all things unfiltered when it comes to beauty. Today's video is going to be a raw and honest look at my 20-year journey with acne. What triggered it, what helped and what didn't, the mental toll it took, and everything I wish I had known sooner. If you're currently struggling with or have struggled with acne, I hope that this video will make you feel less alone and perhaps even give you some helpful insights. This video is not going to be about me giving you skincare advice, but rather a personal reflection of my journey with acne over the last 2 decades. Let's start at the beginning. I first started breaking out very soon after I hit puberty and started my period around the age of 11. So there was and definitely still is a hormonal component to my acne. Back then, my acne was mainly concentrated on my forehead, although I still did get some breakouts on the rest of my face. But as I've gotten older, somehow I get very few breakouts on my forehead. I mainly get breakouts on my temples, my cheeks, and along my jaw. I think my biggest struggle as a child with acne came from two main things. One was that among all my friends, I was the only one that was suffering with this severity of acne. So most of them had pretty clear skin, and the few of them who did have acne, it was just like occasional breakouts and nothing compared to how severe mine was. So I was definitely aware of the fact that I was going through something unusual. And the second thing was that I didn't know what to do about it. I felt so helpless. As a preteen and even a teenager, I had little to no knowledge about skincare, and it just made me feel like I had no control over the situation, which was really difficult. Over the years, I have tried almost every acne treatment that you can possibly think of. So let's go over what helped me and what didn't. Just a reminder, this is personal to me and your skin may be different. So I'll start with the topical treatments, which is something you apply externally on the skin. So one is an oldie but a goodie, salicylic acid. I've been using this for very long. Back in the day, the acne face washes, which were one of the few things you got over the counter to treat it, those contain 2% salicylic acid typically, and they are pretty helpful for me. They do help to control the clogged pores, blackheads, whiteheads, and the smaller breakouts. Even now, I use a salicylic acid face wash every morning. However, salicylic acid does not help with my cystic acne, like the bigger, deeper breakouts. Then I've used clindamycin gels on the prescription of my dermatologists, and it did work, but I wouldn't say it worked super well. Again, I found it to be more useful for the smaller breakouts rather than the deeper cystic ones. Azelaic acid has been one of my favorites because it's one of the few that works on active breakouts as well as the red marks left behind by acne, which is called post-inflammatory erythema, at the same time. Then moving on to the stronger stuff, tretinoin. I started using this around the age of, I think, 22 on the prescription of my dermatologist. And there's a reason why tretinoin is one of the gold standards for acne treatment, because it works. I definitely had to be patient with it because it did take some time to really start clearing up my skin, since I had pretty severe acne at the time, like both smaller as well as the cystic ones, but it helped with all of them. And it also helped with the acne marks and the overall texture of my skin. And I used it for a long time, but there were a couple of reasons why I stopped using it. One is that it kind of prevented me from trying out other skincare actives, which, I had a problem with that because I wanted to try other products. And also it's a big part of my job as a beauty content creator to try different actives. So I wanted to be able to do that. And the second thing was it would keep causing flaking on my skin from time to time, especially on drier areas like the parts around my mouth. And this was annoying, because it felt uncomfortable, it looked bad, I couldn't use makeup over it, and it was just an annoyance. But that's not to say that I would never use tretinoin again. I might use it again in the future because it does work. Another potent active, which is over the counter this time, that has helped me a lot with my acne is benzoyl peroxide. This has actually been a surprisingly recent discovery for me because even though internationally it's a popular acne treatment, it's not that easily available in India. But I'm glad that I finally found it because it cleared up my acne like a dream. It's been effective for all types of breakouts on my skin, and I continue to use it for maintenance. Another topical treatment that helped quite a lot with my acne as well as the acne marks was chemical peels in a dermatologist's office. I got many of these done over a period of about a year in, I want to say 2017 or 18. I got these done on my face as well as my back, and they helped a lot. And my skin would get a little bit flaky after that for a couple of days, but the results were totally worth it. Now coming to oral medications. Before I mention these, I want to emphasize that I took all of these under the supervision of a doctor, and I do not recommend taking these on your own. The first oral medication that was ever prescribed to me for my acne was Yasmin, which is an oral contraceptive pill. So when I was 15, my gynecologist diagnosed me with PCOS and said that my acne was a result of that. So she prescribed me Yasmin and said that it might help me with my acne. Now, unfortunately, it didn't really help. Like, it helped maybe slightly, but not that much. I continued taking it anyway because I like the control that it gave me over the dates of my periods, because when you're taking oral contraceptives, you can basically decide when you want to get your period. But in terms of acne, it didn't make much of a difference for me. Then eventually, after about 7 years, I went off it at the age of 22, and again, stopping it also had little to no effect on my acne. I have also done courses of oral antibiotics like minocycline. Now, these were a temporary fix, of course, but they served a purpose at the time when they were prescribed to me, because usually I had a really bad flare-up going on, so they would help to clear it up at that time so that the topical medications would get some time and support to start taking effect. Then there's isotretinoin, which is known as Accutane in the US. This is an oral retinoid, and just like tretinoin, it's a very potent medication. So I have done 2 courses of this a few years apart, and it definitely helped at the time when I was taking it. But just like every treatment, it is a temporary effect. Like, it's going to come back later if the cause of it is not addressed or if you're not doing the correct maintenance. So usually what would happen with isotretinoin is that it would clear up my skin, and maybe about 6-7 months later, the acne would start creeping back. And I think isotretinoin was probably one of the most unpleasant treatments for my acne, because initially it caused side effects like dryness all over my body, which is unfortunately a very common side effect. And I also experienced nausea with it. Now, that got adjusted because my doctor reduced my dosage, but even then it was just not very pleasant. And another thing to keep in mind if you take isotretinoin is that it can cause some mental health effects like depression and anxiety in certain people. And for me, since I'm prone to anxiety and depression, it did make things feel a little bit worse, but then I can't totally pinpoint whether it was just the isotretinoin or the general mental toll of, having acne. So yeah, I mean, it's unclear, but it is something to consider because it is a documented side effect. So again, even though my acne came back later, I would not call it useless. It served a purpose at the time when I was taking it. Another oral medication that I've taken for my acne has been spironolactone, which worked remarkably well. So how this drug works is by blocking your androgen receptors. Androgens are male hormones. So it can be useful to treat acne in people who have either high levels of androgen in their body, or like in my case, might be normal on paper, but some people's skin is just more sensitive to androgens. So even though my levels of androgens were normal, I benefited a lot from this drug. It helped to reduce the overall oiliness of my skin, which automatically reduced my acne. So I think I was taking it for about 7 to 8 months, and my extremely oily skin actually became so much less oily at that time that I would say it was closer to normal than to oily. Not gonna lie, I really enjoyed that, especially from the angle of wearing makeup, because I didn't have to constantly worry about my makeup melting off because of my oily face. And like, it was surreal not having oily skin at all times, But eventually I did discontinue it because I wasn't exactly sure what the long-term effects of taking it might be. So I didn't want to take a risk. Plus, by then I had started to find a good maintenance regime for my skin, so I was okay with taking that risk of getting off it. So currently, I am not on any oral acne medication. Over the years, alongside all of these treatments, I also learned more and more about my skin and understood my own skin and acne better, One major thing that I came to terms with in my 20s was that my acne is not something to cure, but rather something that I need to manage on an ongoing basis. Now, this might sound negative to you, but personally for me, it actually helped me to deal with it a lot better, because a lot of my frustration with my acne was actually stemming from not accepting this. And once I did accept it, I was able to accept my skin for what it is, become better at maintaining its health, and having more realistic expectations of it, which made me happier with my skin in the long run. And then I realized that certain skincare rules were not necessarily applicable to my skin. Like, for example, not using a salicylic acid face wash every day, or not using actives on your face every day. or these don't really apply to me, because one thing about my skin is that it is oily, and touch wood, it is really hardy. So it doesn't get irritated by actives easily. So I can actually treat my acne a little bit more aggressively with actives without having to worry about my skin barrier getting ruined. So in fact, not using a salicylic acid face wash every day or not using any actives every day actually makes my skin worse, because these things help to maintain the health of my skin. So for example, if I stop using a salicylic acid face wash daily, I actually find that my skin gets more congested. I also realized that oil cleansing is extremely important to keep my skin healthy, because it is so oily that my skin is prone to all types of congestion, whether it's blackheads, whiteheads, small pimples, big pimples. It happens really easily. And oil cleansing is the absolute best way to keep my pores clear since I have oily skin. So regular oil cleansing, I'm talking multiple times a week, has been really helpful in keeping my breakouts to a minimum. And I've also realized that there is no one single thing that can keep my acne at bay by itself. There are a variety of factors that I need to keep my eye on. I'll talk more about this later in the video. One thing I would like to emphasize is that acne varies a lot from individual to individual. Whether it's the root cause, the triggers, what treatments work and don't, everything can be different between two people, even though both of them have acne. So there are a lot of misconceptions about acne. Things like stop having dairy if you have acne, stop eating sugar if you have acne. Acne is caused by chocolates and fried foods. But it's not that simple. So personally for me, these are the things that do trigger my acne. And by trigger, I don't mean the root cause. The root cause may be one thing, whereas there are more surface level things that can trigger the acne. So those two are different, okay? So here's what triggers my acne. One is PMS. I always tend to get at least 1 or 2 breakouts around my period, even if my skin is doing fine otherwise. Exhibit A, I have this little guy, very painful, because my period is due to start any day now. So this is a sign. Sugar, like eating sugary things once or twice is not going to trigger my acne, but if I'm eating like desserts and chocolates 3 or more days in a row, that usually does trigger my acne. Prolonged stress for like more than a couple of weeks. So back when I was in college or in law school and I had exams going on, I would usually see some breakouts at that time. And in terms of skincare products, milky toners. I love the concept of milky toners, but sadly, 9 out of 10 times they break me out, so I stay away from them. Conversely, dairy, which is commonly thought to be a universal trigger for acne, does not trigger my acne. In my 20s, during a particularly bad flare-up, I decided to give it a try and see if giving up dairy would actually help. So for more than 6 months, I completely gave up dairy. And you know how much difference it made to my acne? Absolutely none. And when I went back onto dairy after that, my acne still remained the same. Didn't get better, didn't get worse, it just remained. So I can consume dairy pretty regularly and it doesn't affect my acne one way or the other. I have figured out all of this through years of observing my skin. And that is honestly the only way that you can truly understand your skin and what affects it. I have a complicated relationship with my body image, to say the least. And my acne has definitely been a huge factor in this over the years. One way that it has affected my mental health, particularly when I was younger, was relatives pointing it out. I have one very distinct memory from when I was a teenager, when a particular relative saw me after a long time and immediately looked at my face and said, "Arey Nanika, tere muh pe itni fodi ho gayi hai." Which, if you don't speak Hindi, means, "Nanika, you've got so many boils on your face." And I just felt like saying, "No shit, Sherlock. I had no idea. Not like I look in the mirror every day or anything." Now, I don't know if this is specific to Desi culture, but I don't get why people have this uncontrollable urge to point it out when they see acne on someone's face. Trust me, if someone has acne, they are painfully aware of it. You do not need to point it out. It's not helping, it's only hurting. And the worst part is, it's usually accompanied by some completely stupid, unhelpful advice like, "Oh, you just need to wash your face more often," or "You need to stop using all those skincare products and your acne will just go away." How about you need to shut up? Then as a teenager, when I had a boyfriend, even though he never said anything about my skin or made me feel bad about it, I had this subconscious belief that he was settling for me, just because I had acne. Which is insane, because I had acne when he asked me out, so it clearly had nothing to do with it. I honestly sometimes wish that I could talk to my teenage self and shake her and be like, "It gets better and your acne does not make you ugly." Another major source of frustration and depression when it comes to my acne has been the physical pain that comes with it, specifically with cystic acne, which can be very deep and painful. I think the physical pain aspect of it is something that doesn't get discussed as much in the mainstream, but it can be truly horrendous. There were so many times where I would literally get awoken in the middle of the night because I turned over in my sleep and one of my cystic pimples ended up touching the pillow and sent a jolt of pain. There have been times when I literally couldn't focus on anything all day because my face was throbbing and the only thing that would give it temporary relief would be to ice it. I remember feeling so helpless and hopeless at those times. It felt like this would never change and that my acne would never go away. It has sent me into a pit of depression many times, and I've cried about it more times than I can count. There are so many misconceptions about acne that I have come across. Some of these I knew from the beginning are misconceptions, whereas others I believed to be true until I learned otherwise. One was that if someone has acne, it's because of poor hygiene. This is not true because acne very rarely has anything to do with personal hygiene. Next is, you will grow out of it, or it's a teenage problem. Well, this might be true for some people, but unfortunately, it's not always the case. I did hold on to this because I think I was just trying to find some hope as a teenager that maybe it would, go away as I got older. But unfortunately, this didn't really turn out to be true. My acne did follow me into adulthood, and I know this is the case for a lot of people. And for some people, it might even happen that they don't get acne as a teenager, but get acne for the first time as adults because of other hormonal changes in adulthood or pregnancy, childbirth. So many things can trigger it. Acne is caused by poor diet. I can see why some people would think that because there can be certain dietary triggers for acne, but a trigger is different from a root cause, and research has not established any direct link between the two. Acne will go away on its own. Now, here I want to be very clear. I'm talking about acne as a condition and not a few isolated breakouts. If you get a few pimples here and there, yeah, it's fine. Just leave them alone. They'll probably go away on their own, especially if they're not very big. But when you have acne, which is an ongoing condition, it very rarely goes away on its own if untreated. In fact, it often gets worse. Overall, I think most people don't truly understand acne, and that's fine because not everybody can be expected to understand everything. But I think there are a couple of things worth keeping in mind. One is that pointing out someone's physical appearance is just not okay. Just stop. If you see someone with acne, there is absolutely nothing positive to be achieved from pointing it out. So just let them be. Then giving unsolicited advice, not helpful even if it comes from a place of concern. And especially when you don't know what you're talking about, please refrain from giving advice. Because trust me, in most cases, people with acne know way more about skincare and acne and are actually much more careful with their skin than you might be. Luckily for me, I didn't follow any of the random suggestions I received from people on how to treat my acne, but I know that there are people out there who have. And best case scenario, they wasted that time, and worst case scenario, it actually got worse. So today, as a 31-year-old woman who has dealt with acne for like 2/3 of my life, I think it's safe to say that my definition of clear skin is probably different from most people's. Most people think of this when they hear the words clear skin, but for me, I have clear skin right now. I may have some acne marks and even some cratered scars over here. Clear skin does not mean completely plain, blemish-free skin to me. The default state of my skin now is to have some marks left behind by acne because I do get flare-ups from time to time. They take time to go away, and some of them, like the craters I showed you, may not go away unless and until I get some sort of clinical treatment for it. It's taken me a lot of time and self-work, but I think I've finally reached a place where I can more or less accept my skin for what it is. I think I have a lot less shame and hatred about my acne and a lot more compassion for myself now. If you have ever struggled with acne, I would absolutely love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss our acne stories and swap our wisdom and learnings. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And this is a reminder to be kind to yourself and not subscribe to unrealistic standards of what healthy skin looks like. Make sure to thumbs this video up and subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.